Welcome to another session of Stelmo's Rants and Raves. I'm Stelmo. Let's just jump right in there. I had to come back on today to talk about this uh, topic that I have. But before I get to that topic, let me just say, because it's breaking from Newsmax, and let me read this. Breaking news. Peace talks stall after Iran threatens to close Strait of Hormuz. Mr. President, they're playing you. They are playing you, and the whole world sees it. Stop embarrassing this country. They will never come to an agreement that they're going to live with, okay? Just get used to it. You might as well go in there now and finish it up. That's what has to happen. I like that idea. We'll take 20% of the oil revenue for being the supervisor here to keep this Strait of Hormuz open and take them out of the picture. But, we're doomed. You know, uh, uh, as Americans, we're doomed. We are clearly doomed. We're switching now to the topic that I'm coming back here on. And this has me toasted because here, uh, I was listening to Maria Bartiromo on Fox News interviewing Representative James Comer. And the topic of conversation is Anthony Fauci and what he did with the pandemic. And as best as the evidence shows right now, what happened is this. They had to have a disease, and they had to have what they thought was the cure for that disease. And then they could release the disease so that they could sell billions of dollars a cure to governments all around the world. And I suppose there are some who are going to say this is an ingenious scheme. But the reality is countless people died, including far too many Americans. And everybody, I believe, or at least the vast majority of people in this country, want to see Fauci prosecuted. So why isn't he being prosecuted? Well, the first thing that they might come up with is he was pardoned. But as I listened to James Comer in this interview, he says, we refuted that. The president had no clue that this pardon was going to happen. It was done at the last minute by staff. And pardons by staff and signed by an opine just do not count. And if they do count, it's time to put Fauci through the ringer. Make him pay the hundreds of thousands of dollars that he's going to have to pay for attorneys to defend himself and to try to defend these pardons. But as James Comer pointed out, all of this has been sent to the DOJ nearly 18 months ago. And the DOJ has done nothing, complete silence, just like they're doing nothing on everything else. And that's why I have previously said I think it's a mistake for the president to make another nomination for Attorney General. Acting Attorney General sounds fine. You can act. I don't know that there's any limitation on being an acting Attorney General. But at least make them show you for a full year or so that they're going to do the job. Instead, I got to say this. Several arrests did happen, but it's nobody in any high places. And it's certainly not Fauci. And he has the blood of all these people on his hands. And there's just zero pushback. And not only did the House send everything to the DOJ, but the Senate sent everything to the DOJ as well. And Comer's saying today, he says, I don't understand why the DOJ hasn't done nothing. Well, I'll explain it to you, Mr. Comer. It's because, and wait a minute, you should know this, Mr. Comer. You could not impeach President Biden with all the crimes that we know that you uncovered and you presented the evidence to us, the American people. Not a happen, not a thing. That's the problem. You never impeached Biden once. See, the Democrats impeached Trump twice on made-up nonsense. But the real stuff, you get to escape because the political class, at least if you're a deep stater, is immune from prosecution. There's so much money involved that they're willing to share it to whoever is the head of the DOJ. That's what I think is happening. You can't explain so many good nominees turning into such horrible attorney generals. It's sad, and it doesn't bode well for this country. You don't think they're plotting some other attack like this the same way? I mean, they made millions and millions and millions. They lined their pockets with money that governments across the world spent. And also what I find fascinating, I had heard, and I'm going to say, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it seems that I heard a long, long time ago that Russia wants to charge Fauci and have him extradited, but we don't extradite apparently with Russia, so it's not going to happen. And none of the other countries, they're all willing to, yeah, give him a pass. And why is that? Because, see, when you steal billions of dollars, you can throw a few million along the path as you go. And as Americans, they have to say, am I going to sit around here and wait till they kill me? Or excuse me, maybe I'm not allowed to say that here on this, so I'll have to back up. Perhaps make you eligible for mortician services. That's what they do. They do it quite well. You're fine on laying flat on a gurney, waiting to see if you're going to be embalmed or cremated, or maybe both. But in any case, you're going to be out of the picture, and that's what they want. And Americans are willing, apparently, to sit back, just like, sadly, a number of Jewish people did during the Holocaust. When you know death is the other option, it seems to me you fight and give it everything you have. It may end your life a little bit sooner, but when the outcome, when you know what's going on, and many of these Jews knew what was going on, and they very calmly and patiently walked into these gas chambers. It just, I had that when I was in the service. I went twice to Bergen-Belsen. At that time, it was a Dutch-British concern in Germany, and it had been the site of the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. And when you just look at these mounds that are there, and you know that what they did is they just bulldozed all the bodies and then covered them up with dirt, it defies explanation. It's horrible. And that's where we're at that realm again. Nobody is being held to account. And Donald Trump needs to, I know, look, I get it that people are complaining all the time if the president's having too much sway over the Department of Justice, which is supposed to be neutral. But Mr. President, it's supposed to do its job, and it's not doing its job. Pretty soon we're going to be at the threshold where they can't charge any political people because of the election. Oh, no, we have a policy. Can't do that. And before you know it, this administration is going to be over. Nothing will have been accomplished. Yeah, Donald Trump closed the border, and I'll always be appreciative of that. But everything else is just not happening. The country is falling apart, and nobody's doing anything to stop all these problems. I couldn't, if I used my fingers and toes and the fingers and toes of the next 100 people, it's still not going to come up to the number of criminal referrals that have been sent to the DOJ over various crimes committed by the previous administration. And what is happening in them? Next to nothing. We're not hearing anything. No politicians being charged, even though the evidence in many cases is out there and it's overwhelming. So you see, the political class gives a pass to others in the political class. The exception to this is Donald Trump. And why is Donald Trump the exception? Well, Donald Trump is the exception because he ran for president without any prior office. He didn't give the deep state the opportunity to corrupt him so that when he was president, he would be amicable to all of their nonsense. And Donald Trump exposed a lot of their nonsense. And he had Doge, and Doge come in was showing the public everything that was going on. And then the next thing you know, they started stepping on the toes of the Republicans because they have their hands in the till as well. And you can't come after me. I'm on your side. And the country just can't survive that. We're at that point now. But nobody seems to care. You hear no protests, no nothing. The people are just sheep. They go about their day. They complain about prices because the price of everything has gone up through inflation, which they're saying is only 3 point whatever percent now, and they're far off the mark. And they've been off the mark for years. They've always underreported inflation. And just like they overinflate the number of job openings. People are onto that. People know that you cannot trust the government for any of these numbers. And now we got the president. He keeps threatening Iran. He's going to do such catastrophic things. And it just doesn't work, Mr. President. Sometimes things don't work. And that's where we're at now. We're being embarrassed on the world stage in Iran. Oh, no, you don't like it when people call you on it. Well, then change it. You know, I'm going to say the same thing to you that I say to a lot of these Democrats. There's plenty of audio and video content out there showing what you told us, okay? So we can see you tell us that the only outcome is unconditional surrender. Then it went from unconditional surrender to conditional surrender, and now it's really it's a surrender on our part because we've allowed their ships to pass the Strait of Hormuz. So they've taken in millions of dollars, which they're now going to use to extend that fight against you. You defeat it yourself. You close the Strait of Hormuz to destroy them financially, and then you give them the financial wherewithal to continue it. I'm sorry, I fail to see this logic at all. And people are suffering as the economy collapses. Yeah, I think the president now knows the economy is collapsing, but all the signs were there prior to the war with Iran. And the question is where were his fellow Republicans and especially his secretaries? Why weren't they telling him what's going on? You know, I know I keep going back, but one of the first things that infuriated me with the Trump administration was when Donald Trump went out there and he was taking credit for the great jobs numbers released by the BLS. These were fake news under Biden, and they remain fake news under Trump. So Trump fires the person who does it, and now it's the exact opposite. The number of jobs keeps going up in the revisions. Oh yeah, we missed these 5,000 jobs here and 10,000 jobs here, and there are so many jobs. And you want to know something? I believe that if there is a real increase in the number of jobs, it's solely because people are taking on these part-time jobs that they're trying to squeeze in the few hours that they have left from, taking care of the basic necessities of life, such as eating, sleeping, and that sort of stuff. And then aside from their primary job, you have people out there working 3 and 4 jobs, Mr. President, and they're still having a hard time paying their bills. And this is what happens when you have a government that continues to spend trillions of dollars more a year that they don't have. This is a problem. It is a big problem. And the biggest problem is all this fraud that's been uncovered, nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody, they get some of the low-level people, but none of the big money players have been called to account. It's always going to be something that happened tomorrow. And when you have James Comer coming out and saying, I don't understand what the DOJ is doing, because you see, he understands the process. They put the package together all nice and neat. It has all the evidence they need. They really have very little to do except get the indictment. And, we've heard over the course of a long time, the saying that they can indict a ham sandwich if they want, except when it's the Trump administration. The Trump administration's DOJ has had more indictments turned down than I've ever heard of before. Now, part of it is because they're not firing the people that need to be fired. Let me go off on another tangent. You know, we're told these leakers, we're going to prosecute leakers, and they're working on it, and they're investigating, and that's what they're doing with everything. We're investigating, but nothing seems to come to fruition. No charges. And of course, they have their out when asked about it. Oh, well, we can't comment on an ongoing investigation, even though there's nobody really doing anything on it. They can still say it's an open investigation. We can't comment. And the Republican pundits aren't out there calling out this administration on it. And that doesn't bode well for for us, the American citizens. We're going to pay a huge price. God forbid the next time the Democrats are in power. People are going to be going mind-boggling. But you know what? There's going to come a point in time you're not going to be able to do anything about it. Because if you do, you'll be just like what's happening in Iran now. The protesters, they get arrested and they get executed, okay? Donald Trump warned them, don't do that. They did it, they spit it in his face, and they're continuing to do it. They've made the president look like a fool. Now, I know he doesn't see it that way, and he's not going to see it that way. And I mean, I think deep down he knows, he's got to know that he's wrong on so many of these things. But Donald Trump has, for one reason or another, it looks like he is at least in some small degree becoming part of the deep state. And that's sad for me to have to say that. Donald Trump, when he first came into office here in his third term, he started like a bat out of hell. He closed down the border. He's arresting and deporting people. And even though the polls show the vast majority of Americans want all illegals deported, they've said, no, here in Florida, they're closing, the Alcatraz place down, and they're not going out and arresting people anymore. And the people can see this. The people know this. And I said on a previous video, and I'm going to repeat it again, when I have to go to a store, CVS drugs, and the clerk don't speak English, that's a problem. That's a big problem. When you go into Walmart and they have such broken English that they can't really help you, that's a problem. That's a problem. And it's happening more and more. Just look at the sections that stores like Walmart are dedicating to Spanish products. Pretty soon it's going to be, a third to half of the store. They're all over the place. And so it's obvious that they're replacing products that were there for regular Americans to have room to put all these Spanish products. And let me say, I've tried some of them. Some of them aren't bad. But the point is, this is not how it should be happening. The Donald Trump administration, for whatever reason, is surrendering. And they're surrendering on all fronts. They're surrendering on the economic front. They're surrendering on the war front. And we're going to pay the price for it. And I know I'm going to repeat myself again, but I live in a very red county in a very red state. And yet the Democrats can put 100 people on the side of the highway with their signs every time they have a big issue. How often do I see the Republicans out there? I would join them if they did. Never. Because they don't care. They're in power and they think they're going to stay in power forever. And this is the wrong way, because whenever people take that power for granted, it generally gets taken away from them. And we're in this sad reality where if we give the power back to the Democrats, our goose is cooked. Yeah, it is cooked. I never thought I would live to see the things that I'm seeing, and so many things that I'm seeing, that if you'd have told me 10 or 20 years ago I would be experiencing this today, I'd have thought you would need to see the psychiatrist. But instead, it's the reality. And our country is becoming a more dangerous place to be, as all of these criminals are allowed to run free. And then the blue states, they're looking to free them. And people are apparently okay with that. And if they're not okay, then you need to be out there protesting, and nobody's protesting. So it tells me everybody's okay with what's happening. And they're not going to be okay with where this is ultimately going. But once they get there, you're not going to have any more chance to complain. You're going to be just in the same predicament that people are now in Russia and in China and in Cuba and in a whole host of other, North Korea. And it's also avoidable. But, Donald Trump has really, really let the people down, in my humble opinion. He never released the full Epstein report. He never got the gold in Fort Knox. He's not prosecuting any of the people who commit horrific crimes, including a pandemic that killed millions of people across the world. It's a shame. And when Comer, who couldn't even himself impeach Biden, and let me be clear, that was on Johnson. Johnson told him, no, you're not going to impeach the guy. Because Johnson didn't want to get his hands dirty. And then Trump says he supports Johnson for Speaker of the House. So I don't get it. Look, I realize the president can't fight every single battle. But I think with Johnson, he could say, okay, I'm endorsing him for his reelection as a representative. But there would be nothing wrong with him saying, I'm going to leave it up to his caucus to decide who is the leader. But instead, I imagine the president thought that, hey, I'll endorse this guy because I'm not going to get him beat, and it'd be nice to have him on our side. But he's not on your side, Mr. President. And it's a shame because here in your third term, we're rapidly getting to the halfway point, and nobody's been called to account from the previous administration. And when you have Congress doing all the investigating, issuing all the subpoenas and subpoena duces tecum, and getting all that information and collecting it and put it together in a nice packet with a nice bow and sending it over saying you really don't have to do anything, yet nothing happens. 18 months ago, Comer was saying today. Now, I don't think maybe it has been 18. I don't know. Because he has been Speaker of the House during the previous administration. So, yeah, I guess it's possible 18 months, but the point is people are tired of not seeing anything. And if you think that's the recipe for the midterms, boy, are you going to be in for a huge shock election night. Because I think that far too many Republicans are just going to feel defeated and stay home. That's what happens. And apparently that's what you want. And that's what you're going to get. And then you're going to be impeached third and fourth time. But the person who could stop this is, for whatever reason, decide not to. And that's, I believe, a fatal mistake. I hope I can come back on here at some future time and say, you know what? I had no idea what I was talking about, and I was wrong. I'd love for that to happen. I don't think it's going to. Anyway, with that, y'all have a great day. Stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. Bye-bye.